The top 25 watch brands to know now. What is the number one watch brand? What are the most expensive watch brands men? What is the most sought-after watch brand? What are the big three watch brands? The name on the dial of a watch can tell you a lot. It can represent a range of intangible qualities, from history, pride and prestige to a reputation for quality and interesting design. But for those just starting to take an interest in watches, there's a lot to understand. Ideally, you will develop your own impressions and relationships with brands over time and as you gain experience. Everyone has their own tastes and each watch should ideally be judged on its own merits, but you may want to have a basic orientation to the major brands when learning about or buying watches. There are hundreds of watch brands operating today, and each has its own personality and approach to watchmaking. The brands listed below are not necessarily the best or the only ones worth knowing about, but they are among the companies you should definitely be aware of. Together, they will help you establish a base from which to begin your own explorations. The first watch brand is Rolex. Surely, you already know Rolex. Appropriately represented by a crowned logo, Rolex is the undisputed king of luxury watches, worn by countless historical figures and modern celebrities. New models can be sold above MSRP on the secondary market, and vintage Rolexes are the subject of the most active and passionate watch collection. You don't have to know anything about watches to know or want a Rolex. Of course, the company backs up its reputation with unbeatable quality. Rolex, founded in 1905 by Hans Wilsdorf, is a Swiss manufacturer of luxury watches. Its flagship model Oyster has been around since 1926. With sales of 4.9 billion Swiss francs in 2015, it is the world's leading luxury watch brand ahead of Omega and Breitling. In 1905, Hans Wilsdorf, a native of Kulmbach, Germany, moved to London and, with his brother-in-law Alfred Davis, founded a watch manufacturing company called Wilsdorf and Davis. At that time, most of the production was done in Switzerland, as Swiss craftsmen were the only ones who could make mechanical movements small enough to fit in a pocket watch. From the beginning of its activities, Wilsdorf specialized in the luxury niche, asking its suppliers for ever smaller and more reliable parts, a system that made it possible to manufacture different models of wristwatches that were increasingly miniaturized, while the pocket onion was in fashion at the time. It is finally the company Aigler, of the name of its creator Jean Aigler, a small manufacturer located at Bienne, which agrees to provide him the required parts. The collaboration between Wilsdorf and Davis and Aigler will not cease anymore. In 1906, the company filed a patent on the extensible bracelet with which almost all the models were equipped. The brand Rolex is finally registered by Wilsdorf in London in 1908. In order not to destabilize the customers, the models of the company will carry, during a certain time, the name of Wilsdorf and Davis Rolex before keeping only the name of Rolex. 2 years later, in 1910, Rolex asked the official control offices to certify its movements in order to prove that wristwatches were reliable and accurate, which was the main argument in favor of pocket watches at the time. The company obtained the first precision certification for a wristwatch. In 1914, it was the turn of the Royal Observatory of Kew in Great Britain to issue a Class A certificate of accuracy to Rolex. Until then, this certification had only been awarded to military chronometers, mainly used in the Navy. In the same year, Wilsdorf left London and moved to Geneva to avoid the 33% tax on all imported goods imposed by the British government to finance the costs of the First World War. Wilsdorf's new company, Rolex, was founded in 1949. The second watch brand is Seiko. Internationally, Seiko was long associated with affordable but reliable everyman watches. Today, the Japanese watchmaker is a global superstar loved for its quality and value, but it also rivals the top Swiss luxury brands with excellent finishing and innovative technology, particularly with its Grand Seiko spin-off brand. Seiko produces nearly every component in-house for its watches, which range from the low three figures to well into five. The third watch brand is Patek Philippe. Alongside Rolex, Patek Philippe is widely regarded as one of the most prestigious and collectible names in watches. The historic brand is known for its highly refined, highly complicated watches that often auction for stratospheric prices. Even new, functionally simple Patek watches start in five-figure territory. The fourth watch brand is Cartier. Cartier is sometimes thought of first as a jeweler, but it's also one of the most important historical watchmakers in the world. The French company pioneered early wristwatches and continues to make some of the most recognizable models today. Cartier's often formal style is such that you can hardly discuss the brand without using the word elegant. The fifth watch brand is Apple. The technology company is, like it or not, a major presence in the watch industry. Since its introduction in 2015, the Apple Watch has gone on to outpace the entire Swiss watch industry in terms of units sold. It's the absolute standard for smartwatches and has caused many wearers of traditional watches to switch for good, not least because it's a technological wonder, but also because it was thoughtfully designed based on horological principles developed over centuries. The sixth watch brand is Omega. From the Earth to the Moon, and under the same seas, Omega has managed to impose its style. The watches designed by the Biel factory are appealing because they have a certain sense of proportion. Not too much, not too little. Sturdy, precise and functional, Omega watches rarely flirt with ornamentation. Their elegance is based on simplicity. Excessiveness is only justified by technicality. A form of simple rigor, far from an offensive strategy to become a social symbol, which will become the key to success. For a long time, Omega was the leading Swiss watch brand in terms of volume, and consequently in terms of reputation. The merger with Tissot in 1930, and then the restructuring in 1985 by Nicholas Hayek into a larger entity that would become the current Swatch Group, consolidated the strong position of this brand that equips astronauts, Olympic Games timekeepers and James Bond. But the interest of these timepieces, and the special place that the brand holds in the hearts of many enthusiasts, is not only due to these few celebrities.